Welcome to Writing Lesson Number 1, an overview of the writing section for the academic module. If you are not doing the academic but doing the general, then you will need to go to the general lessons. All you need for this lesson is your training booklet. After this lesson, you will have a clear overview of what to expect in the writing section. You will have a chance to practice the question type using IELTS materials in lessons 2 to 5. Now we're going to look at the format of the writing section. It's the last and third part of the test which is in the test room. The last part is not in the same room. It lasts 60 minutes. There are 2 tasks and we recommend you spend 20 minutes on task 1 and 40 on task 2. But you have to finish and complete both tasks in the hour. Task 1 is a description of either a chart, a map or a process, and task 2 is writing a discursive essay, so that you have to write an answer to an essay title using your own arguments. Using pen or pencil, and you can make notes on the task booklet, but you actually have to write your answer on an answer sheet. You will get 2 different sheets, one for each task. Now we'll have a look at how the writing section is marked. It is marked by examiners who are trained at the same standard all over the world, and they use marking criteria which is partly accessible for the public, and you can see a copy of it in the back of your training booklets on page 19 and 20. They use this and their training and experience to give you a band score, and there are 4 criteria for each task. Firstly, there's task achievement or response, which means answered the question. Task achievement is for task 1 and response for task 2. The second criteria is cohesion and coherence, which is how fluent your writing is and how easy it is to follow. Then you have lexical resource, which is vocabulary, and lastly grammatical resource, which is grammar. One of these categories in the relevant lessons, and you can find the band score criteria in your training booklets. Each marking criteria is marked and given a score, but you won't see what score you get for each task or area. You will only see an overall score of 8 band scores from task 1 and task 2. If, for example, you were to get the scores here, so 7, 5, 6, 7, you would get an overall for task 1 of a 6. Task 1. We're now going to look at the format of task 1, which can be either a graph, chart or a table, which you have to describe the main trends and make comparisons if relevant, or a map or a plan, which you will need to describe and compare the differences between the different maps, or describing a process, such as how a machine works, for example. You will find examples of all 3 types of task in your training booklets when we do the practice in lessons 2 to 4. Now let's look at the format for task 2. Task 2 is a discursive essay, which means an essay with discussion and arguments in it. It is a minimum of 250 words. There are 3 possible question types which you need to be aware of, as your answers will vary according to the types of questions and how many parts there are to the questions. In all the question types, you need to give arguments and support them. Here are the 3 types of questions which you can also find in your training booklets. So the first one says, do you agree or disagree that there should be a set retirement age? To what extent do you agree or disagree that? In this question, you simply say if you agree or not. You don't have to discuss both sides, although it would be a more balanced if you did. We say there are 2 or more parts for this type of question, depending how many arguments you give. The second type of question, some people think that a fixed retirement age is a good idea, and others think that each individual should decide for themselves. Discuss both these views and give. In this question, you need to make sure that your answer covers all three parts in the question. It says discuss both these views and people work along. Do you think this is true for your society? What reasons are there for this change? Here we have two parts to this question, but you can of course give more than one argument for or answer for each part of the question. We will look more closely at this in lesson 5. In lessons 2 to 5, you will practice the writing tasks. We can give you detailed feedback on the writing you do so that you have a good idea of where you are and what band score you would get. You can see an example of it in your training booklet, page 3, and on this slide. You will also get your writing back with the mistakes highlighted and corrections added. We give feedback using smileys as it is illegal to give band scores outside a test situation. This feedback is more precise than simply a band score as it tells you in detail in which of the 8 areas you're going wrong. Let's look at the example here. This is a feedback for a student who needs a score of 7. When you upload your writing for feedback, you have to tell us the score you need and we will base our feedback on that. As you can see, the student got a sad smiley for task response, which means it would not get more than a 5 and needs to make changes to get a 7. Whereas in the grammar, they've got a happy smiley as it fits the criteria in the description for a 7. That is the end of the overview of both writing tasks. You will now go on to lesson 2, which is on task 1, describing a chart or table.